Okay, so welcome to the English vowels. We're going to be covering the vowels today. And before we start the vowels, let's do a quick review of the description of the consonants. What are the three things we need in order to describe the English consonants? First, voicing. Yes. To describe consonants, we need to determine whether the sound is voiced or voiceless. And then?
Place of articulation.
Very good. And third, manner of articulation. So this is for consonants. And the reason why we start from here is to kind of understand why we cannot really use these characteristics in order to describe the vowels. They won't work. But let's see why they won't work. Why doesn't voicing help to describe the English vowels? When we use voicing as one of the describing features for consonants, we are describing consonant pairs that are produced in the same place and in the same manner, but they differ only for voicing. So one is voiced and one is voiceless, like versus b, b, b. Okay? So why is that not good for vowels? Okay, are the vowels voiced or voiceless? Are they voiced? I see nodding heads. Yes, the vowels are all voiced. So describing whether a vowel is voiced, it doesn't really help to, describe the vowel in terms of, in relation to every other vowel of English. So we cannot really use voicing in order to describe vowels because by definition they are voiced. There are languages that have voiceless vowels, like in Japanese they have some voiceless vowels when you produce a vowel and the vocal cords are not vibrating. But in English all our vowels are voiced. Okay? Why is let's start from the manner of articulation. Why is the manner of articulation not a good describer for vowels? Remember, the manners were like stop and fricative. Stop where we stop the airflow, fricative where we narrow the passage for the airflow, affricates, which are like combination pronunciations, nasals where the air goes through the nasal cavity, laterals where the air comes out through the sides of the tongue, glides where the air flows unimpeded, however there is a constriction somewhere in the vocal tract. What about vowels? Do we constrict the airflow for vowels? No, we do not. We do not. Basically, the manner of articulation for vowels in lay terms, it would be the same. You just keep your mouth open and let the air go through the oral cavity. So we say ah, e, o, u, and so on. So the manner of articulation is the same. There's no difference there. The place of articulation, why is that not the best possible way of describing the vowels? The place of articulation.
You're not really articulating, you're just holding your mouth in a certain position.
Exactly, you alter the shape of the oral cavity with the articulators, the tongue and the lips. but there's no place of contact. Like, it's really easy to understand that and b and p are bilabial sounds because the lips are closed, and t and d and n and o are alveolar sounds because the tip of the tongue is touching the alveolar ridge. But there is no such contact ever for vowels. So place of articulation won't work as a describing feature for vowels. So to describe vowels, we need to look at 4 characteristics. Not 3, but 4. And we'll fill that out once we, at the same time as we are filling out this grid here. Now, this is supposed to be representing the oral cavity, so that the lips are here and the back of the mouth, the throat is here, and then, you know, tongue is somewhere there in the middle. Of course, this is fiction. We do not have a grid in our mouths, but it's a very convenient way of approaching the description of the vowels because we can kind of understand while there is not a particular place of articulation for the vowels, there is a place in the oral cavity where there's some kind of a like a point of articulation, so that you know, the tongue moves to a place where we then produce that vowel, but of course the tongue doesn't touch anything, we just move the tongue. So we have, or we move the lips, or so on. But these places in the oral cavity, they are used to describe the vowels, where there's some kind of a concentration of the force to pronounce the vowel. Okay, in lay terms, okay? And let's start from, by the way, you've got this on your page, on your language files on page 59. So what we will be doing is describing, kind of feeling in the mouth, the place of gravity, the point of gravity where the articulators are when we produce these vowels, where the tongue is in the oral cavity. And you can think about the oral cavity, even though it doesn't have this grid, but neither does the insides of the violin or guitar have a grid inside. But what we do when we produce vowels, we change the shape of the oral cavity somehow, so that different kinds of vowels come out. And that's really kind of amazing that we have this little space inside our mouths, which we can use as if, like, you know, playing an instrument, so that it sounds different when we say E or ah, right? And we do these subtle movements with the tongue, and for rounded vowels with lips as well. So let's look at 3 words. Okay, bit, bet, and bat. These are minimal pairs, like bit and bet is a minimal pair, bit and bat is a minimal pair, bet and bat is a minimal pair, because only the middle sound, the vowel, changes, right? Okay, and now let's kind of like in our minds, let's isolate the middle vowel here and see what happens in the mouth when we produce this vowel. You will at the same time when we go over the vowels, you will learn the IPA symbols for those vowels. And here, you know, students usually find the understanding of the vowels and learning the symbols and so on a little bit more complicated than the learning of to describe the consonants, and that is because for consonants many things are very, very clearly explainable, and we can feel the consonants very clearly in our mouths. But vowels are vaguer in a way, but we can still describe them, and after this class you will be able to know what the difference between E and A and O and A and O is. So let's isolate the middle sound here. How does this sound? How do you pronounce that middle sound, the vowel there? E? E? And it's indicated with a capital I in IPA. So the sound is E, E, E. Okay? And then this one here is E. I'm asking you because the vowels are the sounds in any language that kind of distinguish a foreigner from native speakers, and my vowels are a tad off. It's part of the accent. When you start learning a foreign language at the age of 9, it's too late, especially if it's only 2 weeks in a language class, and your teacher also is not a native speaker. I'm not blaming the teacher. It's a universal phenomenon that, you know, when we learn a foreign language later, it's usually people carry their accents for the rest of their lives. So, but everybody has an accent, not only foreigners. So people around here have accents as well. East Texas accents, right? So the third sound is and it's indicated with this kind of an IPA symbol. This symbol, we just call this capital I. This is called epsilon. You don't need to know the symbols, just understand how they're produced, what the 4 characterizing features are. This is it's called ash. It's an old runic symbol. It's like an A and E glued together. It's a digraph, two letters, graphemes glued together. So it's called an ash. Okay, and now what I want you to do is to pronounce this, then pronounce this, and then pronounce this without any pauses in between, and hold your palm under your chin so that you don't move your chin. Focus on what you do with the tongue. Okay, so hold your chin, so don't lower it or don't lift it, and start from here. E. Again. E. What do you do with your tongue? Yes, you do this. You lower the tongue. And this one is the highest, and then going from there, we lower the tongue. And that is one of the describing features of what we do in the oral cavity when we produce the vowels. So we can either raise or lower. The body of the tongue. And we can place now these sounds in the vowel chart so that we find E up here, E in the middle, and A at the bottom. Now it feels like when you produce an a that you're also kind of like producing it, the place of gravity, the point of gravity is a little bit further back than for e, and it is because of the shape of our oral cavities that this place is a little bit further. You know, most of us have, you know, that kind of an oral cavity, but basically, and in describing the vowels, these are all described as front vowels. E, E, front vowels, and E is a high front vowel, E is a mid front vowel, and A is a low front vowel. Okay, so we make that change by either raising or lowering the body of the tongue. Very simple means of producing 3 different kinds of sounds in the mouth. Okay, so let's look at another dimension, because we don't only either raise or lower the body of the tongue, we can also have the tongue in the front, or we can pull it further back in the mouth. So we can either advance or retract the body of the tongue. So we're doing numbers 1 and 2 with the tongue, the articulator tongue, right? So let's take another minimal pair. Beat and boot. Of course, we could write this also as beat. Those are homophones, so either one would work there as an example. So let's see what we do differently for E and U. This sound here, if we transcribe the word beat, this would be transcribed like so, and boot would be transcribed like so. So we have beat and boot, right? These are the symbols that are used for these sounds in the middle of beat and boot. So now let's isolate this sound. It's E, and this is U. And forget the fact that for U you also round the lips. We'll talk about that in a moment, but focus on what you do with the tongue when you move from E to U. So focus on your tongues and produce a long E, E. What do you do with the tongue? Kind of pull it back, right, don't we? So E is, do you feel when you say a long E sound, is it in the front or back?
Front.
E compared to this one, E, E. They would go into the same place in the grid. Of course, they're not exactly identical because they are 2 different sounds of English. They are 2 different vowels. This one is tense, this one is lax. But they are both E and E. They are produced in the high front region of the oral cavity. Whereas U, for U, we pull the tongue back. U. We also round the lips. That's just, you know, one of the other things that we do to produce that sound. So we are manipulating the shape of the oral cavity on the vertical level. So for this I, E, A, we are manipulating it on the vertical level here and on the horizontal level for E and U. Sorry about that. So for E, U, we move the tongue on the horizontal level, for these sounds on the vertical level. So we can do both. Raise all over the body of the tongue, that's the vertical movement. Advance or retract the body of the tongue, that's the horizontal movement. Okay? So then let's look at another minimal pair if we have the word beat and the word bit. I mentioned that these two are two different sounds, E and I. Now in present day English, the E and the U, those tend to be longer, but that is not the distinctive feature for present day English vowels. It was in Old English, but it's not in present day English. The difference, how do you feel the difference if you say this sound, forget the length for a moment. So E and E, E. What is the difference? How do you feel they're different? Because that'll be our point number 4. Yeah? Yes, please.
Chance the time or relax it.
So when we're pronouncing this one, we are putting more effort for the pronouncing that sound. E versus E in beat and E in bit. Okay, so it's the effort that is different. So we could playfully say that we're using more calories to produce a tense vowel like E. That's how it's called. It's a tense vowel. Then when we produce an E, we put not much more, but a little bit more, notably more muscle tension. In tongue muscle tension, there are a lot of muscles in our tongues. So we put a lot of muscle tension for the production of a tense vowel like E. So tense versus lax way of producing the vowels. That's the fourth describing feature. And I already mentioned that when we produce an U in relation to an E, an U is also a tense sound, and it has a lax counterpart, and that is indicated by a little like capital U. And that's, so E and U are lax, E and U are tense. And then there is that other difference. What do you do with the lips when you produce an U, like in boot, and an U, like in put? With the second articulator. You round the lips. So tongue is an articulator, so the lips, and we can either round or unround the lips when we produce the vowels. Unround or not round, leave them in their relaxed position. Ooh, this is really easy to see when you look at somebody producing an ooh or an ooh sound. The lips are really rounded. You can just check in the mirror when you produce those sounds that your lips are rounded for them. Okay, so there are 12 English vowels, and we have now covered 6, so we're halfway there. Yes, well, you need to also look at page 62, which introduces 2 more to the vowel chart. So we have these, and then the vowel chart also, like the consonant chart, it kind of creates this constellation that there is some kind of symmetry in the chart. So the back counterpart for the front e would be o, and the back counterpart for the front a would be a. Let's start from the distinction between a and a. And just to illustrate the difference between these 2 sounds, let's think about the 2 different varieties of English, American English versus British English, and how the sound, the vowel in this word and many other words like laugh and half and so on is pronounced. So we use the a sound here, bath, but how do the Brits say it? Bath, exactly. And this is the difference between a and a. How do we produce the difference? We keep the tongue at a relatively low level in the oral cavity, and what do we do when we go from the American a to the British pronunciation?
Kind of open your lips a little.
Focus on your tongues. What do you do with the tongue? You retract it, right, for this one. So this is here, the a is in the front position, and then you pull it back, you retract the body of the tongue, and you get a. You get the British sound that the Brits use for the same word. So so it's just, you know, a difference in pronunciation. Of course, we have this sound. We use that sound all the time in American English also, like in the word father, father. That's a low back unrounded vowel. Okay, 2 more, and then actually 4 more, but let's talk about the region right in the middle of the mouth, in the mid-central region. So you produce a vowel so that you do not lift, raise or lower the body of the tongue. You do not advance or retract the body of the tongue. You just leave it where it is and just keep your mouth open and let the air go through. And this is a mid-central vowel. We have 2. It's one of the most common vowels, if not the most common in English, like in a sentence like alive, or about, in a word like alive or about, it's the first sound there, alive. This is called the schwa, and it's short for what Indian linguists called as a svarabhakti vowel. It's a neutral vowel where you don't change really, the place of the place of the tongue in the mouth. So alive, about. And of course, very often the indefinite article is pronounced with the schwa. This is a good book. This is a good book, So it can be used there. Sometimes people, when they want to emphasize this is a good book, that would be a diphthong, and we'll talk about those in a moment. In that same mid-central place, in the oral cavity, there is another vowel produced, and that's indicated by what is called, like, you know, an upside down A. It's called a wedge. Very small difference between these two. So this is the sound we find in live, and this is the sound that we find in the body part, like but. It is a little bit further back and a little bit lower than the schwa, but there is not a big difference. Both are lax vowels because we're not putting any muscle tension when we produce a neutral vowel, such as the mid-central vowels are. Okay, the best thing to think about these is, we didn't talk about the back O, which is like, you know, an open O, like backward C, or think about it rather as an open O, because that's what it's trying to depict, this IPA symbol. That is the sound. That we find in these kinds of words, core, bore, for. It's the O in the middle, but it's not a tense O. Like we have a tense O too, but it's this, here we don't use the tense O. It is, that's the sound that is the open O. Yes?
Is it always followed by an R?
It's, there's an awful lot of variation in the pronunciation of the vowels. And the reason why I give these kind of words as example words is that here we use that sound when the sound when this open O comes in front of an sound, then we really use the open O, because the book gives these kinds of words as example words, but these usually confuse the beginning student of IPA because we, for instance, here do not typically use the open O for these words. I tend to, but I'm not a native speaker, so I might say caught. I caught the flu with the rounded open O. I bought a new car. I fought a fight. So caught, bought, fought. You see how I'm rounding my lips for that? But how do you say that, those words? You use a different vowel. Most people do. Most younger people. So you use this one. So I caught the flu. I bought a car. I fought a fight. Does that make sense? And see, that was a really good question because the vowels are those sounds that don't only betray a foreigner, that you're not a native speaker of English, but it also betrays where we come from in terms of the region, what our regional dialect is, because dialects have a lot of variation in how the vowels are pronounced. So we have our special Texas vowels here. This phenomenon is that the unrounding and lowering of the O it's something that is very common in younger people's language, and it's just an indication that language changes, the pronunciations change. Well, the same words, we pronounce them a little bit differently. So thanks for the question. Okay, 2 more. And if you please turn to page 61. There's 2 more pages, 62 actually, 3 more pages. So you notice that there are 2 more vowels added to this chart, and this is the chart for the diphthongs. And this is actually in this particular edition of Language Files. These have been indicated in a different chart in the diphthong file. So we have a mid-front unrounded tense sound, and a back mid-back rounded O sound, another tense vowel. And these vowels are in all the varieties of present-day English. They are not pronounced as what we call monophthong. Monophthong is 1 vowel sound. They are always diphthongized in the speech of native speakers. And so we don't have an A. Like for instance in Spanish, you have A, it's a pure vowel, a monophthong, but we never pronounce A as a pure vowel in present-day English. It is pronounced how. We're talking about this sound here. We start with an E, but do we say let, het, get? No. How do we pronounce these words? Late, hate, gate. So there is this sort of glide to another vowel, and it's this one here. So this is how the A always becomes A. It becomes diphthongized. So the A is diphthongized in present-day English, and so is the O. So we don't say bought. How do we pronounce this word? Boat. So from here, there is this diphthongization to U. So it's a combination of O and U. Boat, and we don't say go, we say go. And this is boat. Okay. And I usually take this comparison of how in Spanish, because in Spanish and most European languages, monophthongs, pure vowels are used, and not these diphthongized varieties. And the diphthongization is something of diphthongization of E and O is something that has happened gradually in English. But if you take the male name Pedro, right? In Spanish, you've studied Spanish, so how do you pronounce that?
Pedro.
Pedro, yes. So this E and this O, they are pure vowels. They are not diphthongized. But how would you pronounce this name in an American accent?
Pedro.
Pedro, right? Pedro. His name is Pedro. So we do several different things to show that we are not native speakers of Spanish, first of all, we also aspirate the p in the beginning, and then this e is diphthongized. There's also a difference in the pronunciation of d, because in English the d is an alveolar sound. In Spanish it is it's more dental sound, so that the tip of the tongue touches the back of the front teeth, the. And of course, we know that the American is a retroflex lateral, retroflex liquid, not lateral, but retroflex liquid, very different from the in Spanish. So there's also a difference. And the vowel at the end in the American pronunciation of the name becomes diphthongized. So from Pedro, we get to Pedro, right? All the sounds are different. It's recognizable, but this is how accents are produced. It's very, very easy to, you know, it's very difficult not to do something that you naturally do in your own language. So my daughter's name is this. Of course, it's Irene in English. Irene, pronounced in Finnish. Finnish also has just these pure vowels, not diphthongized. But her American friends who try to say it the Finnish way, Irene, they always tend to put a little E there at the end, so it becomes Irene, Irene. And that's just an accent. It's just a natural phenomenon that happens always when we try to use another language's phonology. Okay, so these are the 12 English vowels. Let's add the pronunciation of some diphthongs there as well. So English has three diphthongs that we're going to be adding here, three more diphthongs. The A is, I would really call it more diphthongized than really a diphthong. A and O, those are the diphthongized tense vowels. But how do you pronounce this vowel here? In this? You start from here, and then where does the glide go? How does the up? Yes, it goes from here, from the low back position to the high front position. It's a long trip across the mouth. So it's pronounced high. And let's just transcribe the whole word. So high, that's I. So let's transcribe this one. The first one is, of course, a k. And then how do you pronounce the vowels? It's a diphthong. Ow. So you start from the same place and you go up to another back vowel. So cow. Cow. And the third one. So where does that all go? Yeah, it goes to the front, from the back mid position to the high front position. So these are the 5 diphthongs, 2 of them diphthongized and 3 are diphthongs. So that is the story of the English vowel. Okay, any questions? Okay, what I would like you to do, because this is best learned by doing a little transcriptions, hands-on exercises, and you've got plenty of exercises in your book. I think I already asked you to do some of them. If you have your books with you, we could do, let's do this one because it's a fun exercise on page, oh, we don't have time actually. So why don't you do them at home, and Friday we have an exercise day, so work on the exercises. I think I've already asked you to do exercises 5, 6, 7, and I did 8 on a little Cultura video. I went over all these here, so there's no need to repeat that. Just find that little Cultura video from last week, and I've explained everything there. Do 12, 13, 14, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. So it's a lot of exercises, but I promise you, you will understand both the consonants and vowels much better if you do these exercises. And I will post on Friday, so work on them on Friday. By the Friday evening, I will post the answers online on Blackboard. Okay? All right, and have a wonderful rest of the week. I'll be in touch with you on Friday over Blackboard. Bye-bye.